Welcome to Theme 2 Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course. You're going to be looking at how laws protect the citizen and deal with criminals, particularly how employees are represented. In the last video for Session 8, you looked at industrial action in a lot of detail. You then moved on to look at the Trade Union Congress. In this video, you are going to be looking at two case studies, one exploring the equal pay for women and the other looking at junior doctors. The first case study involves the women's strike at Ford's Dagenham factory for equal pay. This occurred in 1968. Before 1970, it was common for women to be paid lower rates than men for doing the same job, regardless of their skill levels. In 1968, women sewing machinists at Ford's Dagenham factory went on strike demanding equal pay. This led to a number of equal pay strikes and the start of a national campaign led by trade unions. A massive equal pay demonstration took place in May 1969, and these actions led to the introduction of the Equal Pay Act in 1970. The Equal Pay Act permits equal pay for females and males in the same or similar job roles, both in a public and private sector. Although equal pay has improved for females, they still get paid 20% less than males for doing the same job. So whilst this action did lead to change when new legislation was introduced, and there has been huge improvements in pay between males and females, there is still a long way to go as females still get paid 20% less than males. As mentioned in previous videos, you can use one case study for a range of different exam papers and topics in citizenship. So for example, you can use this case study for paper 2 when looking at trade unions and industrial action in the rights and responsibilities topic. You can also look at this case study in paper 1 when you're asked about active citizenship questions and successful campaigns. This is an example of a successful campaign, but you can evaluate and critique the level of success. You can also apply this to paper 1 when looking at lawmaking and the influence the public have on Parliament's decisions when discussing and debating laws. This applies to the politics and participation topic in citizenship. You can also apply this to paper 2 when looking at rights and responsibilities as an example of statute law, a written piece of legislation. You can also apply this to human rights when exploring the human right to freedom from discrimination. We have just finished looking at our first case study and are now going to move on to our second. This involves junior doctors going on strike. In 2016, government introduced an idea to change doctors' contracts. Previously, doctors' working hours were only from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. on Monday through to Friday, with any extra hours warranting additional pay. What that means, if doctors were required to work beyond these hours, they would be paid additional money. The government wanted to extend the normal working hours to last until 10 p.m. and to include Saturdays. Just note here that the reason why the government has an influence over the role of doctors is because the NHS, the National Health Service, is a public service provided by government through taxpayers' money, and therefore decisions made by government directly impact on doctors and others working in other public services, such as schools or social services, etc. In response to this, doctors went on strike for 5 days. Eventually, the High Court said that the new contract was unsafe and unstable. Again, this is another example of where you can use a case study across paper 1 and paper 2. So looking at paper 2, you can obviously use this case study when exploring trade unions and the rights of workers. You can also use it in rights and responsibilities when looking at the structure of courts and the decisions made in court, with reference to the High Court. In terms of paper 1, which involves active citizenship in politics and participation, you can use this as an example of a campaign that was successful and the role of citizens in effecting change within a democracy. You can also apply this to the politics and participation aspect of paper 1 by looking at the role of government and the influence government has over public services and the decisions they can make impacting those who work in the public sector. We've just finished looking at a second case study involving junior doctors. This has brought us to the end of this video, and in the next video we'll be rounding off session 8 by looking at the role of employers' associations with some examples.